back to my channel. So in this video and going forward, we're going to do things a little bit differently. As you can see, I have a whiteboard. It will help you to understand a little bit more about my treatment and how I help people with OCD. So this is a video which is around a theme called OCD. Now you can relate this to whatever theme you are going through, whether that be contamination, religious, there's perfectionism, there's many different types. But for me, in my opinion, based on my own experience, and also of working with over 1,000 people recover from OCD, we don't look at the specific theme, because OCD in and of itself is a manifestation of an underlying root issue. If we spend all our time looking at harm OCD, contamination OCD, which is what people are doing, they're finding themselves stuck, because what happens is that, not always, but one team can move to the other because we're not dealing with the root issue. So while they might spend time, working on one specific OCD team, it can move. So that's why my treatment is always around going to the root issue and actually how do we heal and how do we resolve this. But for this viewer, I made this video for you because you going through harm OCD, and I said, okay, hopefully this video will help you where you are at the moment. So for herself, that is going through harm OCD, she had a fear of knives, and this could be a trigger for anyone. So just understand, we're not going into the detail of her triggers, we're understanding what's going on for her and how this can help her, and once she understands this. For any type of OCD, whether it be harm or contamination or religious, you're going to have all sorts of these feelings inside, okay? So you're going to have obsessive intrusive thoughts, you're going to have obsessive images, you're going to have a lot of anxiety and fear. For her that's around harm OCD, she has a lot of triggers and fear around objects, and she's feeling terrified inside. Okay, so this would be for her that's actually going through harm OCD. Now myself that has experienced harm OCD, I can fully relate to that it's absolutely terrifying inside, because what happens is normally people come down to this level here. These are the coping mechanisms, avoidance. So you start avoiding objects, places, people, things. Your world starts becoming very small because, we're exposed to all these objects every day. As she said, she's going into her kitchen. So this is affecting her even living her life. She's not free to live her life because of this. Avoidance is the first strategy. You start avoiding things, okay? And we think that by avoiding things we'll have less intrusive thoughts and less images. But in fact, it's just reinforcing that object is absolutely, it's a threat to me. So it actually reinforces this loop. But again, this is all natural and it's all normal. So don't try to not do it, because actually you're doing it automatically. Our brain is designed to keep us alive at all times. So any sort of threat, it's going to move us away from that. So that's normal. Second way people are dealing with this is exposure. Exposure is going towards the object, it's going towards and being around it and not trying to avoid it. That is effective, but it's not a long-term solution, it's not long-lasting, because if you go in and you start being around the object that you're afraid of, okay, in time the idea is that you will become more desensitized to the object. So in other words, that object that once was a fear or threat, well, the idea is as you more see it and around it, you will raise the anxiety so much that it will spike so much. Over time, the idea is that the anxiety will drop down. But because we're only dealing with it on a very superficial level, the root of it all, the internal root of it all, the nervous system hasn't been looked at all. So what can happen is one object that I feel okay around now can move to another object. And then you're stuck in the same cycle of being afraid of something else. Okay? The third one then is that how people generally treat this is to challenge the thoughts. To challenge the thoughts, to try and reframe the thoughts. They look at evidence towards the thought, look at evidence against the thought, which is going to be huge. There's going to be so much evidence against these thoughts, and there's no evidence for the thoughts. But again, that is only short relief, if any, because the system is inside, is still reacting from this response, and it's going to keep this alive. So you might get some relief, but then you're going to be stuck in the cycle again. When you understand what makes a thought or an image obsessive, what makes a person latch on to thought, what makes these thoughts constant 24/7, what makes you have these images constantly? And the answer is the emotional reaction. This emotional reaction is not something you go, okay, I'm just going to, be afraid of this. This emotional reaction is automatic. It's automatic and it's driven directly from your nervous system. So the nervous system is controlling 95% of how I think, feel and act. And it's run on a default program. So in other words, it's just always on. We don't want these thoughts, we don't like the thoughts, but it's not doing it to make your life miserable. It's a nervous system that's stuck and that's constantly in this activated trauma, fight, and freeze response. This nervous system response is releasing these chemicals, that's releasing the emotional reaction, okay, this fear state. The emotional reaction is also then feedback loop that this is actually dangerous. So the nervous system is giving us a signal, and that signal is actually reinforcing into the nervous system, yes, this is dangerous, yes, this is dangerous. So if you follow along with me now, please let me know that you're on board with this, you understand. So this is a feedback loop. That's why this can only change short term if you're working on the object or the thing you're afraid of. When you change this, you change all of this, okay? Because this, the nervous system, is the response, the default response of the nervous system based on past experiences, based on different emotional wounding a person would have experienced, based on fears. It's this that's running everything, okay, not this. So you're now, based on your comment, you're stuck on how do I, deal with this. So you're very focused on how do I, not be recognized, how do I get rid of this, how do I get rid of this feeling, how do I get rid of these thoughts. That's going to keep you stuck in this. You come back to how can I actually, what do I need to look at in my nervous system that's going to change this over time. So how do you change this is the big question, and it is possible, that's the good news. First of all, we have to understand that the nervous system, it's not just about bringing the nervous system into a regulated state and never goes into a default state. The nervous system will ebb and flow, okay, so that's natural, but what I'm talking about is coming out of the default state of fear, anxiety, terror, okay, being terrified in your body. That needs to change in order for you to not be constantly living with this fear around objects or images or thoughts. If we do that, is the nervous system is very malleable. It's very it's so easy to rewire. Okay, we have to understand that we can do this through breath work. Why breath work? Because our breath is a complete reflection of the nervous system. So when our nervous system is very active, our breath is going to be very active. It's going to be quite fast. When we change how we breathe, okay, we're going to manipulate the breath. When we change how we breathe, we're going to manipulate and change the nervous system. We're going to rewire the nervous system into having a different default state. We don't just do this on every day, one day here, one day there when you're experiencing high symptoms. You're going to do this as a daily breathwork practice. There's a video on my channel that's going to guide you through that specific breathwork, that's for OCD, that you can start doing. This is the breathwork that I've done, and this is the breathwork that I guide all the people that come to me that experience OCD, and it is an absolute life changer when you commit to it. I'm talking about doing daily breathwork every day, 7 days a week, 6 months and beyond. What happens there is that the emotional reaction will start to come down. Okay, emotional reaction will start to come down. As the emotional reaction starts to come down, you start breaking this feedback loop. When the emotional reaction comes down, because you have less anxiety, fear, or feeling terrified inside, these intrusive, obsessive, notice the word O, the letter O is obsessive. This obsessive nature will start to go away, okay? And the thoughts will just become less frequent, less often, okay? And also with less impact. You don't do this through conscious willpower, reasoning, challenging thoughts, understand. You do this by regulating this and changing this, which is you're breaking fully, once and for all, you're breaking this feedback loop. This is going to take a lot of dedication, a lot of determination, going to take a lot of commitment. It's going to take a daily practice when sometimes you think nothing is actually changing. So you have to really, this isn't a one-hit wonder, okay? But if you're willing to put it into practice, it's going to change your life. The second thing I recommend is somatic release. This is we store emotions in our body. We're visceral, okay? We're not just, using our mind to change this. We can't just forget about the body. This is where we use somatic release that helps release suppressed emotions and helps to bring the body and mind into a state of balance. At the moment there's a fight between the body and the mind, because the body's holding the emotions and the mind is saying that this is not true, so there's a constant conflict inside. So this helps to resolve this over time. And third is emotional integration. This learns over time how to be with these feelings, okay? But there's a difference there is a very big difference to be with feelings of feeling uncomfortable, feeling afraid, than feeling terrified. So that has to change first, which is with the breath work, and then you can bring in all these other practices. The first step is the breath work. So that's what I would recommend that the person that is experiencing Harm OCD, or you can relate this to any type of OCD, it doesn't really matter, whether it be contamination, religious, it makes no difference. You have to understand they are all symptoms of the nervous system, okay? When you get that and you really understand that, you're going to spend less time avoiding. Well, you might do avoidance at the start, which is normal. You're going to do less time trying to challenge your thoughts. Don't waste your time doing that. You're just keeping yourself stuck. Don't waste your time doing exposure. Because why? When you do this and you change this over time, you keep regulating this, you break the feedback loop, you're no longer going to need to do avoidance. You're no longer going to need to do exposure, because you're just going to be in the environment of the thing you're afraid of, and it doesn't have the same emotional reaction. You're no longer going to need to challenge your thoughts, because there's nothing to challenge, because in here, it's safe. Okay, we've created a sense of safety in the internal system, which is at the nervous system level. Okay, so this information is life-changing. It changed my life, it changes people's life that I guide them through. You have to be willing to do the work. That's on you, that's your responsibility. You really have to take that on. If you want to start with the breathwork practice, there's a video on my channel, you start with that today. If you want to take this further and you really want to commit to changing this long term, I can show you how. I can guide you through a 6-month program that I've taken thousands of people through. Is it just going to be 6 months? No, you're going to have to do it 6 months and beyond. But 6 months is going to change a lot of the internal system first, and then you keep going. If you want to take this to the next level, which I highly recommend you do, book a call below and I will guide you through. We have a consultation to assess what's happening for you at the moment. But ultimately, this is absolute gold information, and I recommend you to use it. For the lady that actually has experienced the Harm OCD, take this on, start your daily breath work. Let me know if you have any questions below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.